was clear on that throughout. I was clear with President Trump throughout, all the way up to the morning of January 6th. But let's be clear on this point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes.
Does Mother know you just used the word crackpot? I mean, who here had Mike Pence getting a spine on their bingo card for 2023? Albeit almost 8 years too late, but nonetheless enjoyable to hate watch.
Gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued. So, well, Martha, I just people can read the indictment, and frankly, I've said before, I had hoped it had not come to this point.
As the takes poured in over Trump's latest indictment, there were those close to tears on Fox News.
Sean, this indictment is the legal equivalent of the French guillotine, the reign of terror. This is a mob mentality to take out Donald Trump. They are criminalizing free speech. They are criminalizing resistance to the deep state. They are criminalizing the questioning of an election result.
What they did to him over Russia. I mean, how about Obama literally weaponizing the IRS against all conservatives? This is what they do, and this is what my father, more so than any person in American history, has shown the American people. He's literally exposed these frauds for exactly who they are. And it's sad. We're no better than some of these third world countries around the world. You know, we are literally trying to imprison political opponents. We're better than this.
Lock them all up.
Those bending themselves into a pretzel to try and excuse the former president of any wrongdoing.
Trump said nothing and did nothing to trigger any criminal charge on January 6th. Any. His crime was believing and saying that the election was rigged.
How do they know that he knew that there was no fraud? And if this goes to trial, are we going to now have to go back and find fraud in the 2020 election? Is this now what we're going to go relitigate? Now, I know this doesn't count in a court of law, but do you think Trump had any idea that he was breaking the law when he was asking Mike Pence not to certify? And how are you going to prove that Trump knew there wasn't any election fraud? And how are you going to prove that these were corrupt intentions if Trump thought he was doing the righteous thing? You can't. It was just politics. It's all politics.
And those offering the odd dose of reality.
So the entire process, which includes a conversation that he had with Donald Trump, where Donald Trump, after asking him to overturn the election, to not do his job at certifying it, he says to Mike Pence, you know, you're too honest. When someone says you're too honest, that means that you want them to do the dirty thing, that you want them to do the bad thing. I mean, then on page 15
you can disagree with that. You can disagree with that, but you don't arrest somebody over it.
But you can't disagree with the fact that he knew that he had lost the election because everyone in Christendom...
You're going to try to say that Donald Trump knew he lost.
There's no way.
They're going to try to prove that in court, Jessica. There's no way he's going to be proven that he knew he lost. He still thinks he's president.
Well, then the insanity defense is available.
But while I've come to expect this from the likes of Jessica Tarlov, who at this point has to be asking for a raise to cover the ear damage, I was not expecting former Vice President Mike Pence to pull no punches.
And irrespective of the indictment, I want the American people to know that I had no right to overturn the election. And then on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution, and I always will. And I really do believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put themselves over the Constitution should never be president of the United States again. I was clear on that throughout. I was clear with President Trump throughout, all the way up to the morning of January 6th. But let's be clear on this point. It wasn't just that they asked for a pause. The president specifically asked me, and his gaggle of crackpot lawyers asked me to literally reject votes, which would have resulted in the issue being turned over to the House of Representatives, and literally chaos would have ensued. So, well, Martha, I just people can read the indictment, and frankly, I've said before, I had hoped it had not come to this point. I don't know if the government can meet the standard, the burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt for criminal charges. But the American people deserve to know that President Trump and his advisors didn't just ask me to pause. They asked me to reject votes, return votes, essentially to overturn the election and to keep faith with the oath that I made to the American people and to Almighty God. I rejected that out of hand, and I did my duty that day.
Crackpot lawyers care to mount a defense?
The thing about a criminal level indictment and charge is you have to prove the intent, the mental state of the president at the time, which everybody that knows Donald Trump and has read his truths know. He still believes the election was stolen, and he has good cause to believe so.
Now, am I dumb enough to think that Mike Pence has suddenly turned over a new leaf? I mean, I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. We all know he's still as insufferable as he was when he used taxpayer dollars to stage an NFL walkout protest. And here he's simply taking a page out of Bill Barr's book.
Do you think he knew that he lost the election?
Do I personally believe that? Yeah, at first I wasn't sure, but I have come to believe that he knew well that he had lost the election. And now, what I think is important is the government has assumed the burden of proving that. The government, in their indictment, takes the position that he had actual knowledge that he had lost the election and the election wasn't stolen through fraud. And they're going to have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Which is a high bar, of course.
That's a high bar. Now, that leads me to believe that we're only seeing a tip of the iceberg on this.
You think
indictment.
Jack Smith has more?
Oh, yes. I would believe he has a lot more. And that's one of the things that impressed me about the indictment. It was very spare. And there were a lot of things he could have said in there. And I think there's a lot more to come. And I think they have a lot more evidence as to President Trump's state of mind.
With the hopes of scoring a few moderate votes, which at this point, come on mate, you're polling worse than DeSantis. And that guy is as personable as a wet McMuffin.
Yeah, it's good to meet you too. Oh, what is that? An icy? Yeah, that's probably a lot of sugar, huh? Good to see you. All right, 4H, Wayne County. Who else we got?
Got him. We fucking got him.
But regardless, the right on far-right violence only further demonstrates how divided Republicans are, even in their own party.
They are as grave offenses as an incumbent president could commit against the United States, with the possible exception of treason. Donald Trump, though, has decided to inflict this ordeal on the nation on any day since January 6th. He could have avoided and prevented this indictment today. He chose not to. And so the nation's in for a spectacle that the former president wanted. That means for the next year and a half, the former president will be on trial for criminal offenses against the United States while he's campaigning for the presidency as the presumptive Republican nominee for the American presidency.
I mean, how can they be expected to lead an uber-polarized society when the majority of them think that the man who incited an insurrection didn't do anything wrong?
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? And there has been rioting in Louisville, there's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and you'll have we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
They take their shocking nihilism about what's true and what's false, and they convert it to this entire Congress. And it all starts, of course, with January 6th. And before that, the presidential election. All starts with a big lie. Donald Trump's big lie. Well, they say, well, who knows? Maybe he won, maybe he didn't. You say Joe Biden's president, we say Donald Trump's president. Nonsense.
But even if he's found liable to have done so, he can run on pardoning himself?
Well, you know, the Democrats have been playing with this for years with the 14th Amendment and the claims of disqualification. It's sort of a story you tell your kids at night if you're a Democratic household, so they sleep restfully. But I got to tell you, I'm highly skeptical. I don't think that a conviction would prevent Donald Trump from running. And by the way, if he's elected, it wouldn't prevent him from pardoning himself. It wouldn't prevent other Republicans elected from pardoning him. And if this doesn't go to trial, Jack Smith might never see a jury because you can do a preemptive pardon.
That's the party of law and order, remember?
Hey Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.